We need to focus on the goal. And that goal is prepping. It is survival. And when we see all these things happening in the past few days with President Trump, we need to take a look at this and not necessarily what's on the surface. Because I want you to understand, when we get to the end, I'm going to make some connections that you may not have made before. I'm sure some of you have, but it's pretty huge. And it literally will affect every single one of us. So prepping is the key. All right, but first off, I want to say that a lot of the stuff coming out, especially in the prepping community, somewhat in other communities too, we see a lot of speculative information, a lot of speculation. And we have to take it as that, speculation. Unless you absolutely have actual facts, always take it as speculation. Now, we can still try to connect dots, but just don't put it out as fact. And number two, when we look at things with articles, especially in this video with mainstream media, we cannot take that as truth either, obviously. They may show you facts. In fact, I'm going to show you a couple, them being hypocrites, as they often are in this video as well. So don't speculate. Don't take any of this for granted. Definitely don't take this as being absolute fact. But we're going to talk about some stuff that's going to connect the dots, because number three, the point of this is not simply trying to make necessarily a determination of what actually happened or the motives thereof, but instead how this is very important, that we need to prep. We need to prepare. We need to stockpile. We need to get ready, because I've mentioned many times that this year is going to be the year from hell. And I think the door has just opened, and this video hopefully is going to show that to you and prove it to you. All right, so first off, I'm sure you already know, on the 13th, we're looking at, there was an assassination attempt on President Trump. I mean, obviously former President Trump, but still President Trump. And with that in mind, I'm not trying to take either side of the aisle. I'll be honest with you. I have certain people I root for, certain people I don't root for. I'll make it clear I am 100% not a fan of Biden, but I'm not necessarily in this video endorsing Trump either. I'm simply just trying to put out facts. But with this assassination attempt, the first thing we need to look at with mainstream media is they don't even want to even call it an assassination attempt. When it first came out, it said there's a shooting that took place at a rally. Give me a break. Every other president who's even been shot at, like Reagan, for example, it was an assassination attempt. But that's mainstream media. Mainstream media hates Trump. The left, the progressives, I should even more say, they loathe him. There's nothing about him that they literally, many of them want to see him dead. They call him Hitler and et cetera. They don't like him, long story short. So at the very beginning, I saw in the news, oh, wow, there's a shooting at a rally. It says, 2 people dead. I was like, that's interesting. Then like an hour later, when my kid was like, hey, Dad, did you see that President Trump was shot? I was like, no. I even said, no, he wasn't. Because the media would have said assassination attempt and Trump was shot. The first article I even saw, I kind of glanced over it because it didn't even say that, because they didn't want to put it out that basically Trump was being shot at in the first place. Now, why did the shooting take place in the first place? In reality, they don't know. In the wake of Trump's attempted assassination, investigators search for clues around the motive. It's a very odd situation. And of course, this article, like many others, shows one of these iconic photographs. I'm going to talk about this photograph in a minute too, because this photograph plays a big part of this. I mean, there's a few of them, by the way, in the series that show him standing with his hands up with blood on his face. I mean, it literally could be simply just saying, you know what, up yours, Trump is saying to you guys trying to kill me. That's the impression I get, but you never know. This whole thing is very iconic. I want to go ahead and use that term. I'll show you more about that in a few minutes too. Now, the assassination attempt actually happened literally at the 7-minute mark. You can go through videos and watch it. It's not very far into the speech when it happened, and they took care of it very quickly. Now, the motive behind the alleged shooter, they always want to say alleged, even though the guy's dead. And again, in reality, we don't know, do we? He was registered Republican, which is very interesting, but he obviously looked at both sides of the aisle at the very least, because he had also made donations to this nonprofit organization called Act Blue. It's fundraising tools for, it says the power of grassroots. It's all about the left wing, the leftists, the Democrats. And I mean, granted, it wasn't a whole lot. He was only a 20-year-old guy. I like to call him a kid because you know how it is. 20-year-olds seem like kids to me. But he sent $15 to this organization, and this organization is all about, right here, powering Democratic candidates, etc. It's all about left side. Okay, and even more so, talking about him as a kid. I mean, he has no military service. It was his dad's gun. We'll talk about that in a minute too. And obviously, at the very least, his dad took him shooting. And the shot he took was not some miraculous shot like Kennedy. And it wasn't some like far off, ridiculous sniper shot, not by any means. It was 130 yards. And a lot of people say 150. We're looking at approximately 130 yards to where Trump was standing. And of course, the counter sniper teams who were supposed to be protecting him were looking in that direction toward the shooter's location. And even more so, numerous videos have popped up about people saying, look, there's a shooter, there's a person with a rifle on top of that roof. And the local police, or whatever police were there, I don't want to say they're local, but maybe they've been state or maybe county sheriffs, were all kind of like, what's going on? There was chaos. At the very least, obviously there was no comms from the police to the Secret Service saying, we have a gun over here. You may want to, well, you know what, obviously take cover and take Trump off the stage. That didn't seem to happen, so you assume there's probably no comms there. But as you know, the guy's name is Thomas Matthew Crooks. And first off, mainstream media says he used a legal gun. Yeah, it was his father's gun, but it was not a legal gun because he used the gun stolen from dad. He stole that gun from his father because that's what mainstream media and the leftists wants you to think, that it's these illegal gun owners that are a problem. I mean, in this case, the dad, a legal gun owner, is kind of the problem. I mean, obviously he trusted his son well enough to leave the guns available to his son to grab, but that was a legal gun to the father. But since the kid stole it, again, 20-year-old, but since the kid stole it, it's now an illegal gun. Keep that in mind. It was illegal because that boy did not go out and purchase that firearm and then use it. There's a big difference there. Now, to me, I know firearms very well. In the videos, and granted it's a video, it sounded like a 22 LR, and it's difficult to know for sure because it was a video. But what they're saying in the mainstream media is what to know about the AR-15. Ready for this? There's some confusion here, and it may be purposeful. The style of gun used in Trump assassination attempt. And most articles say that, by the way. It's the AR-15 or assault rifle type of gun. I only saw one news article who took it to the next step. And maybe they heard something we didn't, but they said it was an AR-15. I don't know if it was or not. Sound like a 22. It's hard to say on video. You know, all guns kind of sound the same at that point. But it's kind of difficult to say if it was. But the thing is, the whole thing with this AR style gun simply just means it's Armalite style. It's simply just the design configuration of the gun itself. It doesn't mean anything. They always want to try to make it look like, oh, it's an AR-15 and like some kind of weapon of war. It's simply just the way the gun is held. It's all obviously political nonsense they put through. Now, what is not nonsense is they found explosives in his car as well. Police found explosives inside the car of suspected Trump rally shooter, Thomas Matthew Crooks. And in reality, it looks like they found 2 explosives, and there were some packages outside the car too. What were the explosives? Of course, we don't know. The investigation is ongoing, and honestly, here's the first part of this scary thing. We probably will never know. And the packages outside the car, were those explosives? We may never know. I mean, it could have been simply just fireworks. I mean, I don't want to even speculate, but the point is, we don't know what's going on, and they definitely will not tell us. All right, claims on the internet. So here's some things I've seen, and they are just claims, by the way, and please don't give in to these. Take it and say, that's interesting, but don't jump down these bandwagons. First off, there is rumors going around that Secret Service told the sniper and the other people to stand down, don't shoot. I highly doubt that. That's me. That's just me. Maybe you see something else. Maybe you actually have an argument that you could put in there that say that possibly could happen. Furthermore, the sniper, there's actually a meme going around that says that he said that he had the target in his scope for 3 minutes and they would refuse to let him shoot. And I'll tell you right now, that seems like garbage. And here's why. I do know a little bit about Secret Service in my careers and stuff. I've worked a little bit with Secret Service, nothing like really major by any means. But first off, Secret Service, when it comes to presidential details, they don't ask permission. I do know this for a fact, that literally all the different agents are out. When they see an enemy agent with a gun, they shoot first, ask questions later, they take care of it. And as they're pulling the gun up to shoot, they literally will say, gun, gun, gun. And there is no like, hey, we got someone over here with a gun. No, it doesn't work that way. They take care of business right away. Even the way they draw their weapons, too, is completely different than every other 3-letter organization and law enforcement. They basically do it, so they bring it up so they can shoot immediately instead of actually asking later. So with that, firearms protocol for the Secret Service is not what people think. And I think the person who probably made up that little thing probably didn't know that. But secondly, too, let's say that it is true. This sniper is held under legal bounds. I mean, he could have defied that, mind you. It's an open investigation. It's under investigation. He can't talk about this. And he is one of the major players in this investigation. And for the fact that he would bring that out and say that, I find that highly unlikely because we're not simply talking about getting fired. We're talking about serving jail time, big time. Now, When you look at Secret Service snipers, their range is about 1,000 yards. Pretty decent. If you ever shoot long range, by the way, that's a pretty good distance. When you look at 130 yards away, that this guy was laying on top of this building, that's nothing for this. And the sniper clearly could have seen everything as far as what's happening in there. Everything, very clear. So there's something a little weird about that whole situation. Maybe he wasn't looking in that direction. I've seen some clips from videos that shows he was looking in that direction, but maybe he wasn't looking right there as he's scanning around. I'll say again, why wasn't there a sniper on top of that building? You would think, because any high places you would want to have them there. But anyway, when we talk about a counter sniper, this guy was a counter sniper, actually worked with the Secret Service as well as other things in the Army. Listen to what he says about this.
Bottom line is that this is massive negligence to the point of me speculating on what was intentional and what wasn't.
And that's certainly what we're getting down to, isn't it? Was it negligence or was there something here on purpose? And that's the whole thing we're trying to figure out. Now, again, I'll say it again, state of the end. We're going to make some connections, but even beside that, this is all about preparedness, prepping, because the direction we're heading in this does not have a happy ending either way. But that's what people are really arguing about. They're not necessarily arguing about, did he watch them for 3 minutes before he took a shot, whatever. The point is there something conspiratorial about this? Is there some kind of like deep state or some kind of cover up? And that's the real question people are asking, by the way. And it's one I'm sure you're asking as well. Because when we talk about negligence, we have to look at this. A U.S. congressman blames the assassination attempt on DEI at the Secret Service. And that's very relevant because right now, along with this other DEI or woke stuff, as they put it, they're trying to make it so 30% of the Secret Service will be women by the year 2030. And this is not literally a discussion on women's lib and what should be and what shouldn't be. The point being is, because when you see this, look at the size of these women. They don't even come close to the size of Trump. And granted, he was standing up at the top of the car there. But, I mean, even watch her, this woman right here. She can't even get her gun back in. And, of course, I know her adrenaline's going, and it's very mind-numbing, just the whole thing. I've been in combat. I understand how it is. But when you practice the simple part of holstering your weapon over and over and over again and can't do it, that shows there's something going on there. And granted, I don't argue about this. I know this, that she's obviously very nervous. I get that. But the whole thing just does reek a little bit of not qualified for the job, in my opinion. And maybe that's why she got stuck with Trump, because he is not an active sitting president, and maybe the Secret Service doesn't like Trump. I don't know. Speculative. All right, but all of this is very interesting because of the way Secret Service is with Trump, because literally a week before, Trump's Secret Service protection could be removed under a new proposed legislation. That's very, very interesting, isn't it? And if it would actually happen just like a few weeks later, if this does go through, I mean, it very well may have actually been a lot more catastrophic than it was. All right, so I'm going to go through something again. I'm going to connect some dots in a minute. I really want you to see. But right now, I want to talk about some possible theories that are out there, what's going on. And just for fun, not trying to push either one of the agendas and everything, what do you think is going on? Number one, Trump came up with this, or at least his party did, and they did this in a way to make it so it pushes him over the top of basically being this hero who's now taking a bullet for the American people. Because now, look, Trump has now become an unstoppable force because of this, absolutely. But there's some serious holes in this theory, because they have this 20-year-old kid who does not have any type of practical training, taking the job of making it a near miss. I mean, at 130 yards, targets are fairly easy to hit, but hitting the ear of the president, if he was actually off by a couple inches in one direction, it would have killed him, and there goes their plan. So I highly doubt that the Trump campaign's behind this. But nevertheless, it is certainly springboarding the president. He'll never stop fighting to save America. That is such an iconic picture right there. I'll show you more about that in a minute. Option two is the deep state. And as we know, the majority of people in Washington are all for the deep state. And a lot of people say, well, that's why Trump was trying to drain the swamp and get rid of the deep state and obviously failed. Or at least they sent him a warning, a little call shot. Because when we look at Biden, I don't know if you saw this. This is just prior to all of this happening. And Biden had just said this recently. I have one job, and that's to beat Donald Trump. I'm absolutely certain I'm the best person to be able to do that. So we're done talking about the debate. Look at this. It's time to put Trump in a bullseye. This deep state thing, that very well could be it. Because, I mean, my opinion, I'm sure you probably agree with this, that Biden is very, very, very good, even at his old age, reading off a teleprompter and trying to look amazing. He'll talk because he's reading. Take that teleprompter away, and he's like a bumbling idiot, can't say a word anymore. You know, at the very least, he's a really old guy and he can't keep his thoughts together. But he's a politician. He's a career politician. So a teleprompter does him well. And so when he talks about this, Biden doesn't write his own speeches. I mean, most presidents don't. Somebody else wrote on there, we need to put Trump in the crosshairs. So this very well may be a deep state thing saying, Trump, you better back off because right now it's a near miss. But again, could this kid hit an ear? Or possibly was the whole attempt to try to take him out in the first place? Number 3, Crooks is a lone gunman. And that's the narrative they're already pushing, by the way, that he acted alone. I mean, his classmates from school, they have interviewed them and said, yeah, he's always been this kind of loner, doesn't want to hang out with people, always came dressed in hunting gear. I mean, I live in the middle of Michigan. Wearing hunting gear up here is like a status quo, you know, but I don't know, maybe obviously at that school that wasn't the case, but they say he was always alone. But I will say this, and here's where we're getting to connecting dots, because all of that, everything we talked about now is interesting. What's going on here? What's happening? But this next part is not. It very well could not be, and this very well may be the direction we're heading, because here's the dangerous part. This literally could be a new shot heard around the world. With this, Trump and Biden, I mean, in reality, in this theory, they could be all the same, by the way. It was all about trying to make it, oh, hey, you know what, Biden and Trump, now to shake hands. Now, Trump, your turn. Let's see what we can do about controlling America, controlling the people, and even possibly gun control, too. Because there's a lot of people out there, and I'm not putting my 2 cents in this or not, who believe that our presidential candidates are really the same people. They really have their interest in mind and the deep state's interest in mind and not necessarily the American people. So when you look at shots heard around the world, the first one was at Lexington and Concord. This is the one that started the Civil War. But it is not the only one, by the way. It does talk about Lexington and Concord. I mentioned this before, too. People love to correct me and say, oh, it was Lexington and Concord. But however, internationally, the phrase shot heard around the world has become primarily associated with the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. Because in the United States, people will say, oh, it's Lexington and Concord Civil War. But internationally, outside the United States, it's the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand, which led to World War I, World War II, and even to where we are today. This whole situation is still stemming from that one thing, but the way this could be played, it literally could be played as the next shot heard around the world. And at the very least, I do congratulate Trump, and he's still going places, and he's kind of downplaying it, saying, guys, look, I'm fine. But nevertheless, it could be simply just a rally cry. When I see this iconic photo, and we're going to see this the rest of our lives, it very much reminds me of this photo at Iwo Jima. And I could see it heading in that direction. And that's the connections we need to make, because again, it's not about all the stuff we talked about, it's about preparing for the future. And I see a lot of things happening in the future where it may be simply just nothing less than World War III or chaos or some kind of civil war in the United States. And that's why, regardless of your party affiliation, regardless of what you see happen, regardless of everything that's going on there, makes you think we need to prepare. Stockpile food, stockpile water, have gear, have firearms for protection, because there are some times coming. I've already said this year is going to be the year from hell. This literally is the shot that opened the front door to make it happen, I think anyway. What do you think about that? I think that this is basically, that's the shot heard around the world that's going to start the rest of this year, where things are going to progressively get worse and worse. Put it in the comments below. And as always, everybody, thanks for watching.